Okay, so I think we're ready to start the webcast here. We've given everybody a chance to get in. Chris, are we ready to start, and can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us for this this webcast today for the CA PPM community. My name is David Warner. I'm part of the marketing team for CA PPM at CA Technologies. And really very pleased to have you all join us here today. I think we have a really nice presentation, and my role here is really to introduce our speakers and give a few introductory remarks of things that we're doing here with the community and with these webcasts coming up. The most important part is speaking today will be John DePasquale and Jim Georgakis, who are both, like me, from CA Technologies. But they're part of our IT organization at CA, which actually we call GIS. So you'll be hearing GIS referenced throughout their presentation. But it's our IT organization here at CA, and the reason they're speaking to you is that they are speaking to you as part of the community of customers. They are CA PPM customers, and they're going to be speaking to you as customers today. And really, we look at this as being the first in a series of these sorts of webcasts we want to do throughout this year with all of you, where we want to have a number of different customers come on and speak about their usage of CA PPM, and hopefully then provide you with some ideas, some tips, some best practices on how you can maybe expand the use of your CA PPM implementation or get different uses out of it. So that's one of the things we're hoping to do in the coming year. So for one thing, if you would like to speak at one of these community webcasts that we have, if you have a story you'd like to tell, we would love to hear from you. So if you don't mind, if you could reach out to Chris Hackett on the community or to myself, David Warner, we're both on the community. If you could just send us a note, we would love to talk to you about that and perhaps have you give a presentation. And then I'm going to personally be reaching out to a number of our customers, some of the customers that are on our customer advisory board, some of who I see that are attending here today, so they may hear from me about that. And then likewise, maybe some of the presentations we've had at like CA World in the past, where, you know, for those of you that weren't able to get to say CA World, you might be able to hear from them through the community. So this is the kind of presentation we want to give, and we thought a great starting point would be to have you hear first from a customer very close to our hearts, which is CA ourselves, and have you hear from them. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is a live webcast. The lines are all live. We're going to use we have everybody muted, but we are going to do Q&A towards the end of the call. So somewhere in the last 10-15 minutes, we're going to do Q&A. There's a couple ways you can submit your questions. So one is, and probably the most orderly way, is if you could type in your questions into the Q&A tab. That way we can be sure to get through all of those. We'll probably start with that approach when we get to Q&A. But then there'll also be an opportunity for you to unmute your line, which, by the way, is hit #6 or #6, and that will unmute your line. So when we get to the Q&A section. So one other piece that I wanted to talk with you about before I introduce Jim and John is I wanted to talk with you about a customer survey that we sent out about 2 weeks ago, and wanted to give you some information about what this is about. Why do we do the survey? How are we sharing the information? So you may have gotten an email that came from me, and you may have then gotten follow-up emails from TechValidate, which is the partner we're working with on this. And the idea is TechValidate runs this kind of service where it's an opportunity for companies to survey their customers and ask them just a short list of questions. And what we want to do is we want to use it to identify trends, identify things that you're all thinking about. So they may be questions that are not altogether related to your CA PPM implementation, but trying to get an idea of what's on your mind, what's on the mind of your users, your project managers, you know, the other roles that you work with every day, and try to get an understanding of what's going on with that. And then likewise, we want to share that information with you. We think this will be very informative for you, in particular with regard to the community. We think that's good information that you'd like to hear. So we did our first survey of this about 2 weeks ago. We had fantastic response. We had over 300 of you who responded and sent in your thoughts on this. So first of all, thank you to all of you who responded to this. Thank you for taking part. And what we will be doing, actually, we just closed the survey a few days ago, and what we're going to do is we're going to post the results of that here to the community. So look for that in the coming days, where we'll actually just post a number of different report views, just like the one you see here for this question, and we'll post all of that, so you'll be able to see the results of the survey that you took part in. And just to give you an idea of what these questions look like, I just share a couple of these here, and then I promise I'll get out of the way and let Jim and John talk. But one of the questions we asked was, how geographically dispersed are your project teams? And as you can see here, I think one of the interesting takeaways here was that only 21% of you have project teams that are typically in the same office, right? So the vast majority are dispersed in some way. So it's interesting, but again, it's what we have been seeing. I think all of us are seeing a more distributed working environment. Another question we asked was on team communication, and we said, how do your project teams typically communicate today? And you can look at the different responses here. In some ways, there's not a lot of, some things aren't surprising. Everybody does email. Everybody does phone and conference calls. So not a lot of surprise there, but some trends I think are you can kind of pick up here. In particular, in-person conversations is only 58%. So, only about half of us are able to have that, are in the same office, right? And it fits with that team location question as well. Some other interesting points here, daily stand-ups, 38% doing that. That's a new trend that's kind of agile, working its way into, all the different ways that we work. So collaboration software is another interesting one. That's something relatively new, and a good third of you are using that. So some interesting data points again, and again, we're going to post this to the community here in the next few days. I'm just giving you a preview. One more I thought I would share with you is on status report requests, and how often are you hearing that you need to provide status reports from CA PPM? And probably not a surprise here, but the main focus is on weekly reports. So some are asked for a little bit more often, some not as often, but in general, most of you are asked to generate weekly reports from CA PPM. So again, this is the kind of information we're just going to start to ask questions of you. We think it's interesting for you, it's interesting for us, and then we're going to turn around and share that information with you through the community. We're going to share it through social media, it's another opportunity for you to contribute, what's going on in your world that we can give some thought to putting into the product. And we can turn around and share that with all of you so that you can make use of it as well. So with that, as promised, I'll get out of the way and let John and Jim take over to begin their presentation. And I think, John, I need to pass the green ball to you. And from here, John, go ahead and take it from here, John and Jim.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. I'm going to turn it over to Jim Georgakis, and I will speak later on in the presentation. This is John DePasquale. Thank you.
Yep, this is Jim Georgakis. Thank you, John. So as you can see from this first slide, what I'd like to do is give everybody a general overview of CA's IT organization and CA in general. So the IT organization supports about 14,000 users, and we are a global operation, 24/7/365, and we support well over 100,000 devices. Some of the key applications that we use, our consumers are SAP, Oracle, some IBM applications, as well as Salesforce and Office 365. And we do have a cloud-first strategy, and we are a large consumer of Amazon Web Services, AWS, and Microsoft Azure. And I'm not going to go through each of the certifications, but as you can see, we have ISO 27001 and ISO 2000 as part of our certifications. We are currently on PPM 14.2. We are moving to 14.3, I think in the next couple of weeks, right, John? Yeah. And the value that the PPM product brings to us is really around end-to-end portfolio and project management, especially around resource and task management, and it's also a huge tool in support of our PMO. We do a large bit of our financial management and our resource management as well as a tool. And I can tell you from my perspective, I own all the PMs in my organization, and we use the resource management and financial planning on a daily basis. There are other products that CA offers that we use in conjunction with PPM. One is CA Identity Manager, and we use that for provisioning. CA Single Sign-On for single sign-on, and APM monitoring that monitors our environment. We're also integrated with SAP, and that's used for our general ledger and also HR and resource onboarding. What we've decided to do here at CA is leverage the out-of-box functionality, and we moved away from the custom solution. The main reason for that was the transition into the next version ended up being tedious, so we decided to stay on the out-of-the-box version. It's been working very well for us. We've also been using PPM to simplify our IT processes, and we're using Jaspersoft to enable self-reporting, which we're using quite a bit, and it's working out quite nicely for us. We've also just started embracing Agile and a lot of user experience things, so we are moving more toward Agile, and we are certainly moving more toward a UX and design thinking approach in meeting our customers' needs. This slide here gives you an overview of the value. We have over 300 ideas in Backlog, and this is our backlog that will ultimately turn into a project. We currently have approximately 140 projects. We're supporting about 1,700 users. And what we also use the PPM tool for is to identify skills within the organization. So anytime we kick off a new project and we need to identify a specific skill, we're using PPM to do that. And as I mentioned earlier, SAP is integrated for actuals, time tracking, and our typical budget is about $225 million. Well, so what we found is we found significant improvements in how we're managing our portfolio, and it's enabling us to move faster by using the PPM tool. It's also helping us to identify resource gaps, and that's been valuable, especially when we're considering bringing on some consulting help. What we do is we go to the PPM tool and look for either skills and or availability to help us mitigate external use of resources. This is just a visual on the benefits. So right here you can see it's reduced our manual effort by over $200,000 annually, and it's increased our project deliverable in scope, within budget, and on schedule anywhere from 60 to 95%. It's also reduced our consulting spend by $8 million. Again, that's directly related to the resource planning portion of the tool. So lessons learned. So education, we believe, is the key to driving the most value of the product. It's important to get the team trained and understand the many benefits that the PPM tool can deliver, and in particular, train your power users. We believe in training the trainer, and what we like to do is make sure we have some power users, some key folks in the organization who understand the tool that can share that knowledge across the organization. Another key piece is to define the people and process before implementing the solution. And again, we leverage out of the box. And we use that, again, to simplify anytime we need to move on to the next version. And the other key is stay on the current version. So the next section I want to cover is how we do our project initiation, and I'll spend a few minutes talking about that. So there are three streams here. The first one is idea, which is the planning, business case, which is where we get the approval to move forward, and then we have the plan and analyze phase. So what happens in idea and planning, we have what we call big room planning meetings with my peers in the organization. We started a top-down estimating process and identification of all the projects that we need to do in the coming 3 to 6 months. And what we do during that session is not only identify, but we also do a high-level prioritization. We do a high-level estimate, and we talk about the resources or the type of resources we may need to move that project forward. We typically review this list on a monthly basis, and I think, John, you're going to cover the prioritization process with a view in PPM a little bit later. Then what we do is, based on that prioritization, we create a business case. And the business case is now a bottoms-up estimate. It's a more detailed dive into the project and into what we're looking to accomplish, focusing on business value and deliverables. And then we have a criteria based on dollar amount on which level of approval it requires. Once that gets approved, we pull the core team together and we start refining the estimates, and we start doing some detailed planning, and we start creating our backlog around the individual projects. And then at that point, we start the initiation of the project. We typically have a kickoff meeting. We get the commitment on the resources. We use PPM to also help us define some of the resources, and then we move the project forward by assigning a PM and taking it forward. And as you can see on the very bottom, that's how much better we get in the estimating process as we go through this cycle. We go from 50 to 20 to 10. I'm going to hand it off to John now, who's going to go through some of the screenshots and a little bit deeper dive on our processes.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, everybody. This is John DePasquale. I'm with CA's IT department, and I manage the project management office. So I'm going to walk through some of the screens here and talk to you a little bit more in detail about our process here. So the first slide here is really showing our backlog. So all of the work that's scheduled to happen, regardless of whether it turns into a project or an investment, or we use NPIOs for sustaining activities, tracking our time in things like assets or applications or services, everything starts as an idea. And we go through a prioritization process that's really evergreen for us. It's monthly. And transitioning to the next page here, as part of our portfolio management process, what we do is we pull in all of the ideas that are scheduled to start in some time period, as well as all of the in-flight investments, okay, that are executing. And from a budget perspective, we'll draw that waterline typically on our operating cost constraints. Okay, that's typically where we'll run short of money in a fiscal year. So we draw that waterline based upon some target that we've set, and that target is set through our budgeting cycle. And then that are all the investments that are targeted for funding throughout the fiscal year. So the screenshot here, you can see that waterline. And what we're also starting to do, I'll talk about this a little bit more, is at that time of once we've drawn that waterline, that's when we start having the resource interlocks, okay? Because these are the investments that are going to be targeted to be coming forward in the next 3, 6, 9 months. Now we start defining the roles and what org those roles are going to come from, so we can get a handle on what our consulting and our internal resource mix is going to be. So let me just talk to you about our portfolio planning approach. So what we do at the beginning of our fiscal year is we take a look at the in-flight projects, and we lock down which ones are going to continue over into the fiscal year that are going to consume next year's budget. Okay, then we do our capacity planning, our constraints around our OPEX targets, and we draw that waterline. Then we start meeting with our business counterparts to validate the ranking of the investments, and then we start socializing those across the organization. So we'll do interlocks across the business unit, as well as then we start socializing it with the executive vice president. So we can lock in and say, this is what's planned, and we use all the information that's stored in PPM to socialize that. So we run all of our portfolio reporting right out of Jaspersoft, and that's the information we present to the executive team. So those interlocks happen over a December-January time frame. I'll show you that in the next slide. So in December, we're doing the planning and the stack ranking. In January, we're updating our executives. And then by the end of January, we're locking in what our fiscal targets are. And then by the end of February, we're locked and loaded for the fiscal year, which our fiscal year starts in April. So we're in that point now in March where the business cases that are going to start and the investments that are going to start in Q1 for us in April, May, or June are starting to come forward from the various areas within IT. And we have meetings scheduled to review those. So I'll walk you through this slide a bit. This is a summary showing how a life cycle of an investment happens here within CA's IT group. So we start with an idea. We get a cost plan in there, preliminary estimate. That's approved by the business. That business case is then drafted. It's approved by a senior leadership team, typically a group of senior vice presidents. Then it's presented to, depending on the dollar threshold, to our CIO. And then, again, depending on threshold, it might go to an executive vice president, a group of those who we call our investment council, and those folks would review anything over a certain threshold. Once we get the necessary approvals, we convert that idea into an investment. Project manager gets assigned. They start working the work breakdown structure, the schedule, the risk, the issues, and they submit their first forecast from a budget perspective. Team members are assigned. They start entering time against that project. If there are any gaps in resources, the project manager is using the resource finder within the product. They're searching for specific skills, people with availability to fill out the project. Then from an accounting perspective, we're doing all of the labor capitalization in the tool. We record all the timesheets, and we also have some information that comes from SAP to show a holistic view of the project spend. So since labor is coming from the tool, if we're cutting purchase orders and we're buying hardware or software, things of that nature, those things come back into PPM, into the cost plan. Once a month, we ask the project manager of record to submit a new cost plan, turn it into the plan of record, and that becomes the current forecast for the rest of the project. And we do that on a monthly basis. And we do that for two reasons. One, for fiscal responsibility, but we're also looking at projects that are underrunning their spend and forecasting that underrun, so we can take that money and invest it in new things that we want to do. Okay? And then lastly, when consultants are billing us for the work they're doing on the projects that they're staffing, we actually use the timesheets, the approved time, to reconcile the vendor invoices with our vendor management organization. So let me talk a little bit about the personas. Jim has referenced our focus on the user experience. So we break the usage of the product into our product or business owner. You know, the ideas that they submit, the project dashboard that they use. Of course, typically your project manager is going to be managing the schedule, the risk, the issues, the forecast. Our resource managers, the people who are managing team members, they're reviewing allocations, they're approving time, they're ensuring that their staff are keeping current on the skills that are recorded in the product. And then the PMO and our regional portfolio managers are taking a look at our backlog of ideas, what's scheduled to come forward, and revising cost plans as they become more concrete. And then our finance team is looking at all of the spend, the forecast. They're approving any changes to budget. And then lastly, our vendor management organization is using it as a reconciliation tool to pay our vendors. So just touching on what our IT finance team does, they'll use the project change request process within PPM to review any changes that require funding approval, and then the project manager will submit a new cost plan with the appropriate approvals in the change request, depending on the threshold, and then they'll approve the new budget and the new forecast. So we use project change requests extensively. Monthly, all of the project forecasts are reviewed with the senior management team, and we do that on an ongoing basis. We also keep track of the variances from month to month, and we publish scorecards on who's hitting targets. And we have a target of plus or minus 5% on our project forecast from month to month. From a timesheet perspective, teams individuals are submitting time on a weekly basis. The resource manager is approving that time. The project managers, once the time posts, are reviewing the time submitted against their projects and balancing out against their forecast and following up with team members on ETCs and how they're making out on the tasks that are assigned. This is a screenshot showing the project status screen. So we use the project status reporting, the project storyboard report to report weekly status on the projects. So the project managers are submitting weekly red, yellow, and green on scope, schedule, and budget, and putting in comments in there. And those are reviewed by project management office as well as the senior management team. I'll talk a little bit about resource management here. So this is a screenshot showing skills and unfulfilled requests. So what we're doing is we're asking all of the 700 plus people within IT to keep their skills up to date, okay? And we'll run reports quarterly and distribute those to the resource managers on folks who have not done so they're encouraged to do that. So what we're doing, we're asking folks to put in, you know, what skills that they've obtained, how are they changing their proficiency from a beginner to intermediate to advanced, and we're using that for staffing projects. Here's a screenshot of skills that we have. And typically, you'll see an individual with 10 to 20 skills. Some folks a little bit more, some a bit less. And it's over all the disciplines. So around development, around project management, around business analysis, architecture, and so on and so forth. Even our platform administrators will maintain their skills as well. And then what we're also doing is we're looking at the resource utilization and effectiveness. So we're scanning for people who are over-allocated or under-allocated. And what we do from a interlock perspective, especially around our shared resources where we're always constrained, for example, on our QA people. So we try to manage that very closely, and we're pretty adamant about the teams putting in the roles that they need, especially for QA, looking 3 to 6 months out. So our QA managers can forecast the demand and be able to satisfy that. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. And I guess we'll go back to Q&A. Dave or Chris?
Yeah, well, thanks very much. And I think we have a couple of questions that have come in already, but maybe what we'll do at this point is ask for more questions to come in. We'll start with a couple questions we have. But yeah, the best way for all of you to ask our questions is to go to the Q&A tab and type in your questions, and we'll work through those. But it looks like, so our first question we have is around Gantt charts. So the question is, do you manage Gantt charts? Can you talk a bit about your usage there with Gantt charts?
Yeah, so all of the investments we create, we use the template, and they'll come pre-configured with standard WBS, and then the project manager will inherit that work breakdown structure, and then they will tailor it to the type of project they're doing. And we do look at those WBS. They do manage to that, and they do report on it.
Yeah, we also use it at the program level to show the different projects within the program and/or portfolio, to show where there is, where one might be bumping up against another, and where we may have, some issues or concerns from a capacity perspective.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like the next question on the list is, do the accountants leverage Ca Ppm in any way?
Yes, they do. So we have an internal IT finance team, and they are users of PPM. They use the financial module. They're in there establishing the budgets, approving the budgets, reviewing cost plans on a monthly basis, and then looking at the output of those cost plans on a regular basis. Yeah. So our internal IT finance team is a big user of the product, and they produce all of the financials to the management team using PPM.
Okay. Let's see. The next question is, are you using the requisition function?
So we're presently not using the requisition function. We typically, since we're not that big of an IT shop and spread over that many locations, so we're typically, each group is using the resource finder, looking for availability, and we don't do formal requisitions. We'll soft book the resource at the idea stage, and then when we get a commitment from the resource manager, we'll flip that booking status to hard book.
Okay. Okay, I think the next one is, what top-down estimation approach do you use for project initiation of ideas?
So top-down, what we typically do is we take a look at the requirements and the deliverables from an end-user perspective. And what we end up doing is sitting down with people who have some general knowledge about those deliverables, and we basically say, what do you think it's going to take? And we throw that into the system as a first pass. And typically, depending on the experience of the folks giving us the estimates, they come out pretty close in many cases. So top-down is really what's on the top of your head based on your experience, and that gets put into the system as a first pass on the estimate.
The other thing the teams will do is we have an estimating drop-down, and it's really around labor hours. So we'll use a nomenclature of the small, medium, and large. So a medium might be 5,000 hours worth of labor. Large might be 10,000 hours worth of labor. So that'll get us a labor rate of what we think the labor estimate is going to be. And then, of course, the team is looking at hardware, software, things that they would need to purchase. That helps on the top down as well.
All right, great. So we got more questions coming in, and this one's from Rob Ensinger. He's one of our Customer Advisory Board members. So his question is, can you tell us a little more about your skills management process? Who manages the available skills, and what are your criteria for what gets to be a skill in Ca Ppm?
Yeah, so my team, the project management office, is the one that manages the skills repository. So what we do is we work with our education team as well as the managers, and we take a look forward on a regular basis. What are the skills that they're going to be training their teams on? What are the recent certifications? So we're kind of lockstep with the managers and our education team. So for example, as our some of our project managers started to move more into Agile, we started looking at all of the Agile certifications around Scrum Master and Product Owner, and we added those skills and certifications into the list. We did a reconciliation about 2 years ago, looking at skills. We got rid of some obsolete ones. We reviewed them with all of the IT group, and we narrowed those down. And then as the year progresses, people will actually reach out to my group to say, we're missing this skill or a new development language and so on and so forth, so we'll add them.
Yeah, and from a project management perspective, I meet with my team once a week. We have one-on-ones or pulse conversations. And what we typically do is talk about any additional training that they've gotten or anything they've learned on the job. But we considering adding those skills into the database as well.
Okay, great. Another question from another customer advisory board member, Lynn Harris. So she asked, how do you show the program-project relationship in the portfolio since that's not possible out of the box?
So program and project relationships, in ideas, you can have dependencies on other investments. So we started down this path where we've taken an idea and said, what application does it belong to, since we keep our NPIOs? And we've set up those dependencies. So, and less formally, what we do on a quarterly basis is we take all of the IT management folks in a room, everybody reviews their respective portfolios, the things that they want to start, let's say in the next quarter, and the teams start to talk about dependencies and interlocks amongst each other on what's in flight and what they're thinking about starting.
Okay. All right, next question from Jeff Moran. How do you capture people's planned vacation time? Do they edit their own calendars for non-work days, or are allocations created in NPIOs? And if it's the latter, do the resources self-manage their NPIO allocations, or do resource managers?
Yeah, good question. So I don't think we're standard on that. I think some teams are using the calendar to block it out and reduce their allocation, and some are having a conversation with their project manager on an ongoing basis as they're planning out their work breakdown structure and their tasks over the next month or two. So I'll let Jim talk to that because he's closer to it than I am.
Yeah, we actually block it out on the calendar is what we do. Mm-hmm. This way, if somebody needs that resource for that time period, you know, they see that it's blocked out and they don't book it.
Okay. Next question is, do you use the PM proxy, and if you are, what are the pros and cons?
Well, I'm not sure what the PM proxy is. What we do from a security perspective is we have a group for project managers, and some project managers will go into the tab where it allows you to grant other access to, say, a project administrator who's helping them manage the project.
Okay. Next question is a logistical one. Will there be a replay of the webinar? I don't think we're replaying it, but I think we are recording it, and I think we're going to post the recording of it. Chris, am I stating that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It'll be posted to the community site in the next couple days.
Okay, so that'll be a way to rewatch it when you'd like. Next question is from Tammy Real Davis, who if you're not familiar, she leads one of our biggest regional communities we have in the Northeast. So since CA is using the CA PPM tool, is there anything you find as an obstacle when using the out-of-the-box functionality where you would need to customize? I think you talked about you used to have more out-of-the-box functionality before, and you've kind of moved more to be more out-of-the-box. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah. You know what happened to us is as we were looking at past customizations and prior people have come and left and management has changed, those customizations weren't being used anymore. And then when we were starting to do our regression testing as we would move from release to release, it was slowing us down. So we rationalized those. So I think the only customizations we really have is around workflow, on who something might get routed to for a project change request or approving an idea in the system. So we have a few custom fields that it's a few objects, but we try to stay as much out of the box as possible, and I always get requests from people to customize the solution, and I'm pretty good at pushing back a little bit and saying, well, you know, can we modify our process to use the out-of-the-box solution?
Yeah, I can vouch for John on that. He pushes back all the time.
Good. Okay, the next question is around Microsoft Project. You know, do you have projects that are being managed with Microsoft Project?
Yeah, so we use both Open Workbench and Microsoft Project. Yeah. So we don't standardize on one. We leave it up to the PM, what they're comfortable with, what they've used in the past. So we use both.
And most of my PMs use Microsoft Project.
Okay. Let's see, so the next question, it looks like it's mainly around the Jaspersoft reporting, and actually that was something I figured we'd have more questions about. You know, can you talk a little bit more about how you're using the new Jaspersoft reporting and, you know, what value you're getting out of it?
Yeah, sure. So what we started with on Jaspersoft reporting is really twofold. One, we got our power users trained. Okay, so instead of opening up a request for us to engage with a business objects developer to get a custom report, we trained them in the use of the tool, and they're able to go in and create their own ad hoc views and generate their own reports. Then what we started to do on a second front is we started to take a look at all of the custom BO reports that we had done, and we're slowly getting off of all those. We're down to about 10 right now, and in the next 3 months we'll be completely off of business objects, and everything will be running out of Jaspersoft. And the big success in the last couple of months is we're doing all of our portfolio reporting out of Jaspersoft. So we're taking all of our ideas, all of our investments, all of the financials, and we're doing that at Jaspersoft. We had to create a custom domain because the out-of-the-box domains didn't satisfy all of our needs, but that was one thing that we needed to do at Jaspersoft. It's worked out real well. We're real happy with the product and the tool.
Okay. Let's see, the next question, I think it's a timesheet question. So do you have resources that from time to time are pulled in to work major incidents or problems? And if so, how do you account for this in timesheets?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim. No, go ahead, John. Okay, I'll go. So yes, that happens. It's a real-world issue. And what we typically do is assign folks either to a project or ongoing support. If they have to get pulled off, what they'll end up doing is going into an NPIO, and typically that's our operational area where people are working. So what they would do is they would end up charging in the NPIO section, whether it was, you know, Oracle going down or something else. They would just, you know, come off the project and charge it into the NPIO section.
Yeah, so we don't use incidents in the product, but we've created all of our applications as applications, our assets, typically our servers, our infrastructure, the services we provide, and so that's sustaining work. People account for their time using the non-project investment object.
Okay. Next question is another one on Jaspersoft, and which I think this is more about the self-service aspects of Jaspersoft, because I think you mentioned you were starting to get to that point. You know, could you talk about the self-service aspects, and how did you roll that out, or how are you rolling that out and training your users on using their own reports?
Yeah, so when we upgraded to 14.2, as part of that rollout, we identified key stakeholders and power users who are big users of the current reporting structure, and then they were also inundating us with new requests. So what we did is we asked them as part of the rollout to attend Jaspersoft training, and I think in our learning management system we had some computer-based training classes. I believe it's, and we may have even leveraged the Jaspersoft vendor for some of that. So everybody got up to speed. We gave them a sandbox to play in, where they were able to practice what they learned. And then we did some hand-holding with them once they were live on the system. So we sat down with them, went through what they were trying to extract. We did some walkthroughs, showed them how to drag and drop to build their queries and their filters. And since these are mostly technical folks, it was not a steep learning curve for them to get up to speed.
Okay. Next question is, how do you get the reported time and the cost and the actual cost invoice together? Do you compare those in CA PPM or in a financial program?
So every resource within PPM is associated to a labor rate, consultants included. So those hours times the labor rate is the actual cost of the project. And then from a reconciliation for our vendors, the vendors are going to submit a bill to us. We're going to reconcile that monthly bill with a report that we use that shows the consultant's time and cost, and that's how we do our reconciliation.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. Do senior management log into CA PPM?
Yes. Maybe not as often as we would like, but they do, yes.
Okay. Does the loss of the project schedule out of the box report impact you?
No, not typically, because for the status reporting that we do, we use the storyboard report, and the teams are reporting on key tasks and milestones. They're from a summary level. So no, that wasn't a report that we heavily used.
Okay. Another Jaspersoft question. In Jaspersoft, do you work mainly with Advanced Reporting Service or in Jaspersoft Studio?
Yeah, so I'm probably not familiar with the difference between the two, but typically what we do is we go into Advanced Reporting, we go into ad hoc views, we'll create our ad hoc views, and then from those ad hoc views, those reports that we're creating, we're bringing those into the dashboarding feature.
Okay. And so we just put up a question, a polling question here, because we're kind of getting to where we're wrapping up here in just a few minutes. But we, we would like you to take a minute to give us some feedback on the, what you thought of today's presentation. So let us know, and we'll put that towards the next presentation that we do. So we have just a few more minutes here. I want to scan through to get some questions from people we haven't heard from. Let's see. Let's see what else we have here. Here's another Jaspersoft one is, when using Jaspersoft, did CA ever report in your content to troubleshoot an issue? And if you did, if so, did you lose some of your ad hoc views? Did you have to recreate the views again? We ran into an issue like this. Want to know if you experienced it. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, so we have not experienced that currently. I will tell you, as we are upgrading from 14 to 14.3, we are finding some issues with our installation where we are having to recreate some views as part of the upgrade, but not during normal production have we ever lost a view or an ad hoc view.
Okay. Looks like we're into the end of the questions. One more about, I guess this kind of question as to, since we're all part of CA, as to how much you get involved with our product management, product development team. Do you work with them regularly, or is it, maybe you could talk a little bit about that relationship, because it looks like the question is saying that you know, as an organization is moving to more ideas intermixed in portfolios, we'd love to see your experience make it back into the tools. So it sounds like they like your ideas and your experience, and you know, looking for that interaction with our development team.
Yeah, so we do reach out proactively to our product management team. We attend the same end of sprint call that customers do. We submit ideas for feedback. And one other thing that we probably do that most customers don't is after we do an upgrade, we do a write-up and we give back to the engineering team our experiences on how the upgrade went, problems that we ran into, things that they might want to consider in the future, whether it be updated documentation and so on and so forth. So we do give feedback back, and we do generally touch base with our product management team on a regular basis. And we absolutely attend every end of sprint review that happens, and we're very interested in the next Armstrong release, and we attend those regularly.
Excellent. All right, very good. So, you know, I think we're at about 5 minutes left here, and we've gone through a lot of questions. You know, I think this has been a great session. We've had great interaction here with the audience, and you know, so I want to say first, John and Jim, thank you for the presentation here. Thank you for taking all the questions. And I want to say thank you to all of you in the community today who not only joined us with very strong attendance, but stayed through and asked all the questions you did. It really made for a fantastic session. So I want to say, thank you to everyone. As I mentioned earlier, do look for more information on the next webcast that we'll do with more success stories like this. And actually, please do reach out to us if you have a story you want to share with us. We would love to hear from that. So reach out to Chris Hackett or myself, David Werner. And then also, in the next few days, look for more information on the Tech Validate survey that we took a couple weeks ago. We'll be sharing that information on the community. Love to hear some more feedback on that. And then, I've mentioned this before, but, please do follow us on Twitter. It's a great way to get, really up-to-daily information from us that we put out there for, our customers and others. So you can follow us for CA PPM. We have @CAPPM on Twitter. That's the handle just for CA PPM, and then also for CA as well as @CA Inc. So thank you, everyone, for taking part today. Thank you for a great presentation, and we'll talk to you next time.